Archaeologists and historians have made amazing discoveries, from the oldest human-made art to long-lost mythical cities in the last few decades. And perhaps one of the most scandalous and scary discoveries in recent years was the burial site of 35 disgraced nuns discovered near Oxford. So, who were they? Why were they buried like that? And what truly happened to them? As bizarre as that sounds, it's only one of many finds that seem almost impossible to explain. In this video, we'll be looking at some of the most mysterious ancient discoveries that continue to leave experts searching for answers. So, ready to see the impossible? Well, let's get started. Number 15. The Spear of Lugh. Irish mythology is filled with insane weapons, but none earned a reputation quite like the Spear of Lugh. According to medieval sources such as the Libor Gabla Wren, it was one of the 4 treasures of the Tuatha De Danann, alongside an enchanted sword, a magical cauldron, and the famous Stone of Destiny. The stories claim the spear was unstoppable. Once released, it never failed its target, and its destructive power was so overwhelming that it supposedly had to rest inside a vessel of liquid between battles to keep it under control. For generations, historians dismissed those descriptions as colorful symbolism rather than history. Then archaeologists began recovering remarkable Iron Age ceremonial spearheads from Irish bogs. These were not ordinary battlefield weapons. Many were crafted with exceptional skill, deliberately deposited as sacred offerings, and some featured designs capable of producing eerie whistling sounds in flight. Nearby ritual cauldrons have even yielded traces of toxic plants, hinting that warfare, ceremony, and mythology were far more closely connected than the old legends first suggest. Number 14. The Stara Zagora Neolithic House. Back in 1969, archaeologists carrying out rescue excavations in Stara Zagora found something few expected to find almost 8,000 years later: a complete Neolithic home still standing where a family had once lived. Dating to the beginning of the 6th millennium BC, the house measured roughly 10 by 6 meters and originally rose about 7 meters high. It was built with wooden posts, woven branches, and thick clay walls. It even preserved 2 floors, storage areas, ovens, hand mills, grain bins, ritual columns, and around 60 ceramic vessels in every room. That's an unbelievable amount of pottery for such an early farming community. The reason any of it survived, however, was a disaster. At some point, the house caught fire, and instead of destroying it completely, the intense heat baked the clay into a ceramic-like shell that protected the structure for millennia. Without that blaze, the walls would have slowly dissolved back into the earth. Sometimes history survives not in spite of catastrophe, but because of it. Number 13. The Sword of St. Galgano. Legends about magical swords usually belong in old storybooks. But in the hills of Tuscany, one still stands where it has remained for more than 8 centuries. According to medieval tales, the young knight Galgano Guidotti experienced a vision of the Archangel Michael in 1180, urging him to abandon his violent life. Mocking the command, Galgano declared changing himself would be as impossible as driving a sword through solid rock. Then he thrust his blade into a stone, and, according to tradition, it stayed there. He abandoned warfare, lived as a hermit, and after his death in 1181, the church canonized him only a few years later. A chapel was built around the site, where the sword still rests today. For centuries, many assumed it was simply a clever medieval relic created to attract pilgrims. Then, scientific examinations in 2001 told a different story. Metallurgical studies confirmed the weapon dates to the late 12th century, while its corrosion matches centuries of continuous exposure. Whatever truly happened on that Tuscan hillside, the sword itself is real, and it refuses to fit comfortably between history and legend. Number 12. Tartaria. The empire that existed only on maps in 1705, French cartographer Guillaume de Lisle published a map of Asia, showing something that doesn't quite fit the way most people picture history today. We mean spreading from the Ural Mountains to the Pacific Ocean and from the Arctic south toward China and Persia was a single enormous territory called Tartaria, or Grand Tartary. De Lisle wasn't making up a forgotten empire, nor was he alone. The same name appeared on maps built by Dutch, French, and even German cartographers for more than 2 centuries. It covered vast parts of present-day Siberia, Mongolia, and Central Asia, remaining on respected European maps long before those regions were divided into the borders we know today. The mystery wasn't that the land never existed. It was that Europeans knew so little about the countless peoples living there that they grouped an immense portion of Asia under one convenient name. As Russian exploration expanded eastward and Qing China tightened its administration, the blank spaces slowly disappeared, and so did Grand Tartary, leaving behind one of history's most misunderstood names. It's strange. Number 11. The Lascaux bull panel. When 4 teenagers wandered into a hidden cave in France in 1940, they unknowingly stepped inside one of humanity's oldest art galleries. The walls of Lascaux Cave were already covered with magnificent paintings of bulls, horses, deer, and other animals created roughly 17 to 21,000 years ago. Using charcoal and mineral pigments, Ice Age artists altered the stone into scenes that still seem full of movement today. For thousands of years, these paintings survived because the cave remained perfectly sealed. Its temperature, humidity, and airflow barely changed. Everything shifted after the cave opened to visitors in 1948. Within only a few years, thousands of tourists brought warmth, moisture, carbon dioxide, bacteria, and fungal spores into an environment that had remained untouched since prehistoric times. Green algae, mold, and mineral deposits slowly began attacking the artwork. By 1963, the French government made the difficult decision to close the cave forever. Ironically, the paintings endured thousands of years in darkness, only to begin fading once the modern world found them. Number 10. The footprint's time couldn't explain. A single footprint can sometimes tell a bigger story than an entire history book. And that's what happened in Aqualinca. In 1874, workers quarrying limestone near the southern shore of Lake Managua found dozens of human footprints preserved in hardened volcanic mud. Today, they're protected inside the Museo Huellas de Aqualinca, Nicaragua's oldest museum. At first, scientists believed the prints were 200,000 years old. But later, radiocarbon dating reduced that estimate to about 6,000 years. More recent thermoluminescence studies suggested they may be only 2,100 years old instead. Even now, no one agrees on their true age. The footprints themselves tell another interesting story. Rather than running from danger, the people appear to have walked calmly across the wet ash, some perhaps carrying heavy loads. Tracks left by deer, birds, and possibly dogs surround them, making the scene feel almost ordinary. Yet one question has never gone away. If they weren't fleeing a volcanic disaster, where were they going? And why? Number 9. Thor's hammer pendants. For years, people assumed Thor's hammer belonged only to Norse legend. Then, archaeologists began uncovering hundreds of tiny hammer-shaped pendants from Viking graves, and the old stories suddenly felt much closer to history. These miniature hammers have appeared across Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Iceland, Russia, and even the British Isles. Some are simple iron castings, while others were crafted from silver or gold with remarkable detail. Most researchers believe they represented Mjolnir, Thor's legendary weapon. But not everyone agreed. Critics argued they could just as easily be anchors, tools, or decorative ornaments with no connection to Norse religion. That debate lasted for decades until 2014, when a metal detectorist on the Danish island of Lolland uncovered a pendant unlike any found before. Cast into its surface was a short runic inscription translating simply as "This is a hammer." The discovery finally confirmed what many had suspected all along. Even more revealing is when these pendants became popular. As Christianity spread across Scandinavia, production increased dramatically, suggesting Vikings wore Thor's hammer not merely as decoration, but as a powerful declaration of faith. Number 8. The children nobody can identify. Children leave footprints everywhere they go. Most disappear within minutes. These survived for more than 130,000 years. Inside Theopetra Cave in central Greece, 4 tiny footprints pressed into ancient clay have become one of archaeology's most puzzling discoveries. Measuring only 10 to 14 centimeters, they were likely left by children between 2 and 4 years old after the cave floor briefly flooded and later hardened. The mystery isn't how the footprints formed, it's who made them. According to the traditional timeline, Greece at that time belonged to the Neanderthals. But the discovery of the Apodema 1 skull, dated to about 210,000 years ago, suggests Homo sapiens may have reached Greece far earlier than once believed. That leaves archaeologists with an uncomfortable question. Were these the footprints of Neanderthal children, early modern humans, or a population we still know almost nothing about? For now, those footprints remain silent, keeping one of Europe's oldest human stories to themselves. Number 7. The Sword of Goujon. Very few ancient finds have left archaeologists speechless. But the Sword of Goujon managed exactly that. Hidden inside a sealed tomb in China's Hubei province for roughly 25 centuries, the bronze weapon should have emerged covered in corrosion like countless others before it. Instead, when it was drawn from its lacquered scabbard in 1965, the blade still reflected light and proved sharp enough to slice a researcher's finger. An inscription identified its owner as King Goujon of Yue, the ruler whose dramatic return from defeat became one of China's most celebrated historical accounts. Scientists later discovered that the weapon's makers had mastered an unusually sophisticated bronze formula, combining carefully balanced amounts of copper, tin, lead, and sulfur to resist corrosion. Its distinctive dark diamond pattern wasn't merely decorative either, it also strengthened the surface and reduced oxidation. Kingdoms vanished, dynasties collapsed, and entire civilizations changed. Yet this sword waited beneath the earth, almost untouched, preserving craftsmanship that still challenges modern understanding. Number 6. The Buss Island Well. In 1578, an English ship called the Emmanuel of Bridgewater was sailing home from the Canadian Arctic when its crew reported seeing an unfamiliar island between Ireland and Greenland. They described mountains, a rugged coastline, and enough detail for mapmakers to give it a name, Buss Island, after the ship itself. And the report was accepted without much question. And before long, the island began appearing on charts across Europe. English, Dutch, French, and Spanish cartographers copied it into their own maps, while sailors adjusted routes and explorers searched for a land that nobody could reliably find again. As the years passed and expedition after expedition returned empty-handed, the island refused to disappear from the maps. Instead, some cartographers simply renamed it the Sunken Land of Buss, suggesting it had slipped beneath the sea rather than admitting it had probably never existed at all. It remained on respected nautical charts for nearly 2 centuries, proving that even the most trusted maps sometimes preserved confidence more faithfully than certainty. Now let's move to number 5. The museum that lost an ice age forever. Museums are often called the guardians of history. We trust them to preserve the past so future generations can study it. But sometimes history is lost long after it's been discovered. Before World War II, Berlin's Museum for Naturkunde housed one of Europe's greatest collections of Ice Age animals, including mammoths. Woolly rhinos, cave bears, lions, and many other fossils gathered over more than a century. Then, on February 3, 1945, bombing devastated the museum's east wing. Fire, collapsing walls, water damage, and falling debris destroyed a lot of specimens before many could be moved to safety. Some fossils remained buried beneath the rubble for decades, while others vanished forever. Well, the greatest loss wasn't just the bones. Many were type specimens, the original fossils used to identify entire species. Once destroyed or separated from their records, they could never be studied using techniques like ancient DNA, collagen, or even protein analysis. So, was this simply a war incident or something planned? Number 4. Thule, the land beyond the edge of the world. Around 325 BC, the Greek explorer Pytheas of Massalia returned from a voyage farther north than almost any Mediterranean sailor before him. What he described sounded unbelievable. 6 days beyond Britain, he claimed to have reached a land where summer nights barely existed, and where sea, ice, and sky seemed to blend into one strange landscape. He called the place Thule. Many Greek and Roman writers doubted his account, and his original book disappeared, surviving only through quotations preserved by later authors such as Strabo and Pliny the Elder. Yet the name refused to vanish. For nearly 2,000 years, mapmakers kept placing Thule on the northern edge of the known world, although nobody could agree whether it was Iceland, Norway, Greenland, or somewhere else entirely. The real voyage probably inspired the legend, but the uncertainty surrounding it allowed every generation to reshape Thule into something different. Sometimes a place doesn't survive because people know where it is, but because nobody can prove where it wasn't. Number 3. The Aztec death whistles. Some discoveries remain silent until someone makes the mistake of waking them. That is what happened after excavations near the Templo Mayor in Mexico City uncovered 2 small ceramic skulls beside the remains of a sacrificial victim. For years, they sat inside museum collections, cataloged as unusual ornaments with no obvious purpose. Then, researchers blew into one. Instead of a musical note, it released a chilling sound often compared to a terrified human scream. The discovery suddenly gave new meaning to descriptions recorded by early Spanish chroniclers who wrote of terrifying noises echoing across Aztec battlefields before warriors attacked. Modern acoustic tests show these whistles produce frequencies that naturally trigger feelings of alarm and distress in the human brain. Historians believe they were probably used during warfare and religious ceremonies connected with death and the god Mictlantecutli, ruler of the underworld. Small enough to fit inside a single hand, these ceramic instruments prove that some of history's most creepy weapons relied not on steel, but on the terrifying power of sound itself. Number 2. Hyperborea, the map of a forgotten north. In 1595, the famous cartographer Gerardus Mercator published a map of the Arctic unlike anything seen before. Instead of leaving the North Pole blank, he confidently drew 4 great islands divided by enormous rivers, all surrounding a mysterious black mountain at the world's center. Mercator didn't claim he invented the design. He said it came from an older work known as the Inventio Fortunata, a medieval account that has since disappeared. Long before Mercator, Greek writers, including Herodotus and Pindar, had already spoken of Hyperborea, a distant northern land where the sun lingered for months and life seemed untouched by suffering. Whether they were describing real geography, misunderstood travelers' tales, or pure mythology is still debated. Modern exploration proved Mercator's Arctic map was geographically incorrect, yet the confidence with which he drew it remains remarkable. The book he relied upon is gone, the people who supposedly visited those northern regions are gone. But the map survived. Number 1. The ancient comic book writing has changed a lot over the centuries, but people haven't changed nearly as much. We've always wanted to tell stories, share ideas, and even put words beside pictures. That's what makes this Roman tomb in Beit Ras, Jordan, such an unexpected discovery. Unearthed in 2016, the tomb contains 2 chambers covered with preserved murals showing nearly 260 people taking part in the founding of the ancient city of Capitolius. Builders, farmers, gods, and ordinary townspeople all appear in one detailed scene. But what truly caught archaeologists by surprise were nearly 60 speech bubbles painted beside the figures, looking remarkably similar to those used in modern comic books. One even belongs to a dead man, who seems to say, "Alas for me, I am dead." As if that wasn't unusual enough, the inscriptions were written in Aramaic, but using Greek letters, something rarely seen in murals from this period. It's a reminder that people found creative ways to tell stories long before comic books ever existed. If you found this video interesting, be sure to like and subscribe. Take care. We'll see you soon.